Have you ever had one of those trading strategies that, on paper, should absolutely work, but it still ends up losing you money? Yeah, it's got to be one of the most frustrating things in trading. But what if the problem isn't your strategy at all? What if it's the one variable you can't see on the charts? What's happening inside your own head?
Okay, so let's really dive into this, right? You've done all your homework. You've backtested, you've found a setup with a super high probability of success. You wait, you're patient, the market finally gives you that perfect signal, you pull the trigger on the trade, and you lose. And then it happens again. So why? I mean, if the setup is solid, what's actually breaking down?
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Having a profitable strategy is really just the price of admission. It's the ticket to the game. It doesn't guarantee you're going to win. And that's a tough pill to swallow, but it means there's something else, something much bigger at play here.
So this leads us to what we're calling the winning strategy paradox. It's this bizarre situation that honestly drives so many traders out of the market for good. You have all the right tools, all the right information, but you still keep getting the wrong result.
I mean, just look at this. A strategy with an 80 or 90% win rate, that should feel like a golden ticket, right? But in the world of fast-paced trading, where your decisions have to happen in seconds, that tiny little window of execution, well, that's everything. And that's exactly where your emotional state becomes either your biggest competitive edge or your absolute worst enemy.
So, all right, if the strategy itself isn't the core problem, then what is? Let's get really specific and break down what these quiet little saboteurs of emotional trading actually look like when you're in the moment.
You know, because when we hear the phrase emotional trading, we usually picture someone, screaming at their monitor or panic selling during a market crash. But the pros will tell you, the real damage? It's done by much quieter, much more subtle feelings.
And here they are, the real culprits. It's not about big explosive rage. It's about boredom, making you just jump into a mediocre setup because you feel like you have to do something. It's not panic. It's that fear of missing out, that FOMO, that makes you chase a price that's already left the station. It's that quiet desperation to get it all back that makes you totally ignore your risk management. None of these are logical strategic decisions. They are all 100% emotional reaction.
So take a second with this and just be really honest with yourself. Have you ever placed a trade because of one of these feelings? Because just recognizing that pattern, that's the absolute first step to breaking it.
Okay, so we know what these subtle emotions are. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the actual mechanics of how they manage to sabotage a perfectly good trade right at that critical moment of execution.
Well, first off, your timing gets completely thrown out of whack. Impatience makes you jump in too early, before all your signals have lined up. Then that fear of missing out, it makes you enter way too late, long after the best entry point is gone. Either way, you've just single-handedly destroyed the statistical edge of that great setup you waited so long for. And the next thing you know, you start bending your own rules. You create these little exceptions in your mind, right? You tell yourself, oh, well, this time is different because, or, it's almost a perfect setup. This is literally your emotional brain staging a coup and overriding your logical, strategic plan. And finally, risk management. Poof, it goes completely out the window. That carefully planned position size gets tossed aside so you can try and win back a loss with one big, desperate trade. All the discipline you worked so hard to build just evaporates in a single moment of frustration or maybe even overconfidence.
And this, right here, this is the whole thing. So often we blame the market. We say, my setup failed. But the truth is, the setup didn't fail. Your execution of the setup failed. The market didn't change. Your emotional state did. The failure wasn't external. It was internal.
Okay, we've really dug into the problem, and it's some heavy stuff, I know. But now, let's pivot and talk about the solution. What's the core principle that professional traders use to protect themselves, from themselves?
The rule is this simple, but man, it is not easy. Professionals only engage with the market when they are in a state of emotional neutrality, not all hyped up after a big win and not desperate after a string of losses, just calm, objective, and neutral. They treat trading like a serious job, not a trip to the casino.
This slide just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? The amateur reacts to every single feeling with more action. I gotta get it back. Let's go bigger. I'm gonna force this trade. The professional has one simple, non-negotiable response to any of these destabilizing emotions. Stop. That's it. They just stop. They walk away. They get that no single market opportunity is worth the damage of a bad emotional decision.
So how do we actually get to that professional mindset? It's not magic, it's a system. So let's build your discipline toolkit right now with some practical, actionable things you can start using today.
And remember, the point of these tools is not to beat the market. Let's be really clear about that. It's about managing yourself. You are your own biggest and hardest opponent in trading, and these rules are your best defense.
All right, let's walk through these 4 steps. First, the pre-session check. Before you even open your charts, rate your emotional state on a scale from 1 to 10. If you're not at least a 7 for calm and focus, you don't trade. Simple as that. Second, the one trade rule. After any loss, you must wait for one full candle on your chart to close before you do anything. This just forces a mandatory cooling off period. Third, the session cap. Before you start, decide on a maximum number of trades for the day. Win or lose, once you hit that number, you're done. You walk away. And finally, journal your emotions. Seriously, writing down how you felt creates the self-awareness you absolutely need to stay in control.
And all of this brings us to the final, powerful truth of this whole explainer. You can be the smartest analyst in the world, you can have the most brilliant ideas, but if you don't have the discipline to follow your own plan when you're feeling bored or frustrated or greedy, none of that intelligence matters. The market pays for consistent execution, not for brilliant ideas.
So I'll leave you with this one last thought. The goal of a professional trader isn't to feel the excitement or the thrill of trading. It's to feel nothing at all. To just be an objective executor of a plan. So the next time you sit down to trade, before you click that button, just ask yourself this one simple question. What do you feel? The answer just might be the most important piece of data you look at all day.